While the nation is battling its worst drought in more than 100 years, a new plan offers some hope to inland Australia. It involves redirecting tertiary treated wastewater, which would usually be bound for the sea.
It's just a bit daft for the driest continent on Earth to be sending litres of water out to sea every day.
A team of environmental educators from Earthcare Earthshare at Toronto are behind the plan. Their submission has been forwarded to a parliamentary committee inquiry, but further study is needed to assess the cost involved and determine if the plan could become a reality.
It is early days, but the water we drink now has been around for a long time, and it could have been anything before we drank it, in that sense. So the water we take out of there, dinosaurs could have cried some of that.
A similar concept is operating in Gunnedah, where the town recycles 100% of its water. Once treated, it's used to irrigate crops such as cotton. Earthcare Earthshare will discuss its plan with the University of Newcastle next week. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
The Oaks course at Cessnock had brought out the best and worst in players all week. On the final day, you thought the overall title was only really between Mitchell Brown and Tom Davis, with just 2 shots separating the pair. While Sarah Kemp had plenty to do if she was to pressure for the overall girls' crown, especially after a triple bogey opening hole, but she fought on gamely. Sarah O was the one to catch for that title, with the 13-year-old sensation always holding the upper hand, starting the day a 6-stroke leader. Almost cruel pin placements on the final day made it almost impossible for anyone to attack. Players trying anything to ease the frustration. Defending champion Rick Kulaks was fighting hard to chase down the lead. But the only birdies on this course today weren't interested in golf. Dropping 3 shots in the first 4 holes dented Sarah O's lead, but even with Sarah Kemp's odd touch of brilliance, the youngster comfortably took the title. In the boys, Mitchell Brown lost 4 shots on the back 9 and Tom Davis 2 to force a 3-way playoff, Davis sneaking home the winner.
Well, Laurie Venn's been my hero since probably the early 80s, and because he's been a really classy rider, and he was the man who I tipped to win it, and I got a shock when I beat him actually.
Newcastle Beach is best known as the home of Surffest. The break in its amphitheatre setting now has a new claim to fame, hosting the opening round of the Quicksilver Air Show World Series. Unlike the conventional pro surfing, aerial surfing is all about separation from the wave and expressing yourself mid-air with a successful completion needed to score. Queensland surfer Josh Fuller took the prize for best hit when he tried to make a meal of his board. Best miss going to Andrew Mooney from Western Australia. For the sole Novocastrian in the series, Lucas Gresham, it was a great opportunity to take on the best at home.
It's a bit hard. Some guys are doing things these days and I just go, oh my God, how am I going to keep up with that? But it's just fun.
Former world champion Josh Kerr got his season off to a brilliant start with a Gold Coast teenager collecting the winner's purse of $10,000 to post his first win in Australia. Despite small conditions, he knew he was a chance.
Not really the best, but they're kind of fun for an air show, but I had a really bad heat at the start and then I found some in the end, so I'm pretty happy with how it went.
Simon McShane of Victoria was second, Dave Reardon-Smith from Queensland's Sunshine Coast third, with Asher Pacey of Scots Head on the Mid-North Coast fourth. Gary Blair, NBN News.
A field of 91 entered the Hornsby to Swansea Cycle Classic, facing a gruelling 189 kilometres. Winding through the F3 and the Old Pacific Highway, a pack of 8 riders broke away around the 90-kilometre mark, soon to be left behind by Trent Wilson and Bart Hickson. By the time Wilson and Hickson reached Doylson, they held a modest 2-minute lead, giving them the advantage against a strong headwind on the Swansea bends. Not giving each other any room to move, Hickson set the pace for the final 2 laps of Swansea, but Wilson had other ideas, taking out a nail-biting finish in 4 hours and 45 minutes to cap off a great year for the 23-year-old.
Absolutely stoked. The last 4 years in the New South Wales Championships, I've been on the podium, never won it. We're happy to win today. 6 months in Europe, come back 3 weeks ago, third in the Grafton, second in Penrith last week, and this has topped it off.
Defeated but not deflated, Hickson says his opponent worked for every last bit of his victory.
I had a 2-up sprint last week and I got it, so I thought I might have the edge today, but he had the better legs, so it just got me.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
After catching the infamous red-eye special flight back from Perth overnight after the loss, you couldn't blame Newcastle for trying to mask their disappointment, especially when the players thought they'd done everything to win the match.
We kept most of the possession the whole game and we had a few really good chances, but we failed to finish.
His brother Joel was one of those, but you had to praise Glory keeper Jason Petkovic for his effort in front of goal. Newcastle's control in midfield forced Perth to stack things at the back to try and shut United down. Desperate defence the only thing to stop another Joel Griffiths raid. Playing with just the lone striker, the normally attacking Perth instead pressured for a mistake, and when they got the break, the league's most prolific goalscorer Damien Morey lived up to reputation. Former Newcastle captain Shane Price almost made it 2-0. But the home side certainly grew in confidence after the opening goal, and several chances came their way after the break. Alex Moriera came the closest for Newcastle with a trademark free kick strike, drawing the best from Petkovic once again, but 1-0 was how it stayed.
I mean, I'm ecstatic. I think it was a fantastic result for us because we've beaten a very, very good Newcastle team.
The loss leaves Newcastle in a share of third place as Olympic and Perth take a small break on the field after round 4. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
4-year-old Tamika appears anything but sick, but looks are deceiving. She's forced to take up to 22 tablets every day and undergo constant physio in order to treat her disease known as cystic fibrosis. The genetic condition mainly affects the lungs.
A filling up of the lungs with mucus, which causes obstruction. You have collapse of the lungs, often associated with infection.
With no cure, sufferers are considered lucky if they live beyond 30. Earlier this year, teenagers Kimberly Cairns and Rhea Cornell died from the disease. Rhea's mother is now helping others sell ribbons this week to raise funds for more research. CF receives little funding in comparison to other children's illnesses, yet sufferers can spend up to half their lives in hospital.
They know they're going to die young and they have to live with this all their life.
Hopefully, in the next 10 or 20 years, we may be able to find a cure for cystic fibrosis, but we're still a long way to go.
The ribbons are on sale at the John Hunter Hospital and at LJ Hooker offices. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
A window display full of sausages rarely creates much interest, but when the region's best are being judged in the background, everyone wants to know the results. Independent butchers from across the Hunter entered more than 80 sausages in 4 categories: Australian Tasty, Pure Pork, Continental and Gourmet. The process for the judges was not unlike wine tasting, including the disposal. The idea behind the competition is to eventually find the best banger in the country.
Sausages have really gone up in class now, and some butcher shops now have up to 45, 50 different varieties of sausage, ranging from the traditional Australian sausage to sausage which are completely off the wall.
So, who makes the best snags in the region? Rathmines Butchery took out the Australian Tasty category, Branxton Meats the Pure Pork, Barnett's Meats from Singleton shared the Gourmet prize with Terrace Meats, while it also prevailed in the Continental. Matt Carden, NBN News.
Yeah, we'll go with 3. Yeah, I'm not going to go there and sit back. We'll go there and try and get something out of it early in the first half.
After the demise of the Uncle Toby's Ironman series just weeks before the competition was to begin last year, it left Josh Blair without a job and the life he loved. Forced to compete in trials throughout last season to have any chance of winning a contract this year in the lone national Ironman competition, it's this weekend that Blair can secure exemption to all the Kellogg Series events.
I've really missed the top level level racing. So yeah, looking forward to these trials. I mean, it's going to be quite tough, the competition over 2 days.
It certainly will be. There will be 8 races in all over the weekend at Coolangatta, with many fellow ex-Uncle Toby's competitors also lining up. So too, many of the sport's rising stars, as everyone tries to win of just 4 elusive exemptions to the series.
It's going to be cutthroat, so I think you're really going to have to be in the 4 finals up there and stamp yourself quite early.
The Matara Hill Climb will take over King Edward Park this weekend, with the club round tomorrow to be followed by the state championship round on Sunday. Tamworth's Neil Farr is expected to be tough to beat for overall honours again, with his open wheeler set to feature. And the Matara Surf Classic is also on this weekend at South Bar Beach. The longest running surfing event in the country, the Classic celebrates 40 years this weekend, but it's an 18-year-old local in Travis Lynch who may take the Open title. He finished 4th last year after winning the junior title and has since enjoyed a great year, placed 4th overall on the ASP Australasian Junior Tour. It's been an issue the coaching staff and the player himself have wrestled with all week, whether or not to push Matthew Bingley back into the top side. The skipper returned to the field only last weekend in the Youth League, but after spending months out after groin surgery, the coach has opted to give him 1 more week in the lower grade. For those in the top grade, it'll be a reunion of sorts with one of the Wolves. Wollongong's Shane Lyons played with several current United players at the Northern Spirit, and after a few tumultuous years since making his debut, the son of former league grade Cliff is just happy to be back in the NSL.
I know a few of the players from Northern Spirit when I used to play there, so it'll be sort of old friends as rivals now.
The result will be in tonight's NBN News late edition. Meanwhile, former Newcastle Knight Darren Albert will be out to cap an outstanding season with English club St Helens at the weekend by winning the premiership. Along with former Knights player Peter Shields, Albert St Helens play Bradford for the crown. The wing has just signed a 2-year extension after being named in Super League's Dream Team. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Of the 150 staff now working at the Infringement Processing Bureau in Maitland, only 38 have made the move from Sydney.
I didn't expect many would relocate because of most of the people at Parramatta, have been there for some time and have family commitments and homes down there.
Melissa Borovnik says she chose to relocate for a promotion and a change in lifestyle.
Compared to Sydney, it's a slower pace, but I find it wonderful. It's good.
Workers who didn't move have either taken redundancies or will be redeployed elsewhere within state government departments. A staggering 12,000 local job seekers inquired about the positions left vacant, of which 92 were filled. More than 2 million fines will be processed at this call centre each year, but the majority won't be from the police service.
Fines such as littering offences, dog offences, offences under the Fisheries Act for fishing without a licence, for instance.
And a further economic boost for Maitland is just around the corner. The Department of Mineral Resources, together with 200 staff, are relocating to the city. It will be fully operational in 2004. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
With recent events in Bali and last week's warning from US authorities that Australian power stations could be targeted by terrorists, the sight of the army in the shadow of Liddell and Bayswater could have had some locals concerned. Taking part in what's described as a routine training exercise, Army reservists from the 1st 15th Royal New South Wales Lancers from Sydney were undergoing training in the ageing amphibious M113A1.
We've been planning this exercise now for just on 12 months, and Lake Liddell is known as an ideal swimming hole for amphibious operations, and so it was part of my plan about 12 months ago to come through here and conduct amphib.
Another reason Lake Liddell was chosen was because participating troops have become too familiar with military training grounds at Holsworthy and Singleton. While the army training might have been a coincidence, an extra police presence in the area isn't. A directive from New South Wales Police Commissioner Ken Moroney has seen Upper Hunter Valley Police dedicate more time to patrolling both power stations.
Whilst I can't go into the details of our intelligence, I can say that the patrols have been incorporated in our overall high visibility policing strategy, with the main aim of increasing safety in the area.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
The inferno, with flames up to 20 metres high, began in bush on the southern outskirts of Cessnock late this morning. A combination of drought-parched country, today's scorching weather conditions with mercury around the 40-degree mark, extremely low humidity and strong westerly winds saw the situation quickly become a state of emergency.
The fuel is extremely dry, so it takes no preheating. The fire, as soon as it's ignited, is off and running. So yes, the fire conditions are pretty well almost as bad as they can get.
Local New South Wales Fire Brigade and Rural Fire Service firefighters immediately began an operation to protect homes from the rampaging flames. Emergency services evacuated residents, which began as a stream from the hamlet of Kitchener, but then became a torrent as the outbreak raced southeast through Abernathy towards Kurri Kurri. While the agonising wait ended without loss for some, others were not so lucky.
We could confirm that 5 have been lost. There is other reports of other properties lost, but I can't confirm that at this time.
With firefighting resources on the ground stretched, extra brigades were called in from Newcastle and the Hunter Valley. The biggest morale boost came when the American air crane Incredible Hulk and the fixed-wing waterbombing plane arrived at the fire front. For Abernathy resident Christine Simmons, the air crane was heaven sent.
I thought, thank God, all the way I just kept praying, please God, get me there safe to get home, to get the animals and the husband, you know. And then I saw the helicopter and I thought, oh, hallelujah, thank God for Elvis, he's not dead after all. A bit silly, isn't it? But anyway, oh no, it was amazing, absolutely incredible. Thank God we've got him.
The Cessnock fire turned deadly this afternoon, with emergency services discovering the body of the person in a car after the flames had raced through the Kitchener-Abernathy area. Emergency coordinators at Cessnock Fire Control are tonight sending crews to 4 fires around the city, with outbreaks also at Bishopsbridge, Kurri Kurri and near Wollombi. Gary Blair, NBN News.
This street in a normally quiet village is where the Hunter Valley bushfires turned deadly. A 55-year-old man from Chatswood in Sydney was killed when an out-of-control wall of flames overran his new car on Kersley Road, Abernathy. The death is now the subject of a police report to the state coroner. With the situation desperate last night, 300 firefighters continued to work to protect homes around Cessnock from fires at Abernathy and Sawyers Gully.
The wind conditions caused the fire to act extremely erratically, very ferocious fire, travelling extremely quickly.
13 houses in one area bore the brunt of the Abernathy blaze, turned to ash and rubble.
It's nothing at all, but nothing. This shirt, I borrowed it off someone. When we drove up the road, we drove up past through the flames. We were lucky to get out.
For unemployed father of 4 Graham Groissard, the fire now adds to his desperate situation.
I've got 3 kids, got another one due before Christmas. Had all the baby stuff inside the house.
Police are believed to be investigating reports that arsonists started the deadly inferno.
Kids on motorbikes. So they'd like to kill them. What would you like to do to them? Have a look what's left. They've ruined me.
By daylight, the fire's destructive path became painfully obvious. Some homes miraculously spared from damage, others totally destroyed. In Stewart Street, Abernathy, Peter Dufferin had lost everything.
I mean, it's only stuff, but the important stuff, the stuff that tugs at you, which it does, is the personal, the usual photograph stuff I want to give my kids.
Even his 1942 Wolseley was caught in the inferno, believed to be one of only 10 in the world. Next door, John Morrison managed to escape with an armful of photo albums. Today, he unearthed his father's war medal.
It meant a lot to him, and it means a lot to me.
A visit by Deputy Premier Andrew Refshaugi brought some relief for families, with the state government making $10,000 in emergency assistance available. Perhaps one of the most difficult things for many residents to come to terms with is that the blaze was deliberately lit. A special police arson task force will now investigate just who was responsible.
If people engage in this sort of activity, then the chances of detection, apprehension and conviction are very high.
But the smoke is far from clearing over Abernathy. Fires near the township continue to test containment lines this afternoon and are expected to burn throughout the night. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
These are the flames that struck fear into hundreds of people at Cessnock on Saturday afternoon. Packing an intensity which surprised fire authorities, the orange juggernaut consumed a 7-kilometre strip in just 4 hours.
I mean, we get pretty intense fires in Cessnock, but that fire was extraordinary the way it behaved and just how quickly it came through and impacted on the properties.
The village of Abernathy bore the merciless brunt of the wildfire, with 13 homes destroyed. A Sydney tourist was killed nearby when the fire front overran his car. Up to 300 firefighters, including rural New South Wales Fire Brigade, State Forests and National Parks personnel, backed by the giant waterbombing helicopter Incredible Hulk, did all they could to protect life and property.
The firefighters were basically into just property protection purely, ignoring actually trying to stop the fire because that was just beyond them and it was unsafe.
Today, the disaster relief effort to assist around 100 residents affected by the fires was underway in earnest. Insurance assessors viewed the destruction and the Mayor of Cessnock launched an appeal to give the victims a hand.
And that's what it's about out here, helping our mates and getting the help and the funding to the victims out here as quickly as possible.
As the reality of Saturday's devastation sinks in for the Abernathy residents who've lost their homes, stories are now emerging of the random acts of generosity to help the victims of this disaster. John and Shirley Morrison lost their uninsured home and are now living in a car. Local generosity will see them swap the vehicle for a caravan.
We just want to thank everybody for their kindness and that, because it does go a long way, like in times like these.
A state of emergency triggered by 4 weekend bushfires which ringed the town remains in force at Cessnock. Forecast that weather conditions are about to deteriorate has fire authorities nervous about tomorrow.
Very strong west-northwest winds, and we're talking in excess of 50 km/h winds, so that will cause us some problems if that does come through.
Gary Blair, NBN News. Kersley Road, Abernathy is where the Cessnock bushfire turned deadly, killing a Sydney tourist in his car. Today, a joint police rural fire investigation team checked the scene as part of the inquiry into the devastation.
We have resources so far as uniformed staff and detectives from the lower Hunter Command, but we're also being assisted by forensic services, even Polair and teams of investigators from Task Force Toronto, based in Sydney.
In addition to the fatality, police are still trying to compile a full picture of the property destruction.
We're aware from aerial photography that there's been fairly substantial damage, but we need those people to come in and let us know as well.
While firefighters were prepared for the possibility the Cessnock blazes could flare up today, they were also busy working with national parks to remove fire-damaged trees now considered a safety hazard. The focus of today's firefighting activities has been for ground crews to quickly stub out a small number of outbreaks which broke out to the southeast of Cessnock. It's been a busy day for waterbombing helicopters which are being based at Cessnock Airport. Another volunteer agency being kept busy after the fires is the Native Animal Trust. Abernathy carer Jan Hughes today revealed one of the amazing survival stories to emerge from the weekend inferno. These 5 orphan joeys possibly only surviving because they were in a bare paddock.
And there was absolutely no blades of grass anywhere to be seen, and that's what saved these guys, because the fireball was so massive and the heat was so intense it just ate up everything in its pathway.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
The continued increase in the incidence of depression is alarming, but it's also been revealed 1 in 4 sufferers turn to drugs such as alcohol to provide short-term relief from their symptoms.
It tends really to mask what the real problems are, and so coping with alcohol or cannabis or speed tends not to really solve the problems, just help people get away from them for a bit.
It's led psychologists at the Centre for Mental Health Studies to examine just how effective a treatment like cognitive behaviour therapy is for people with multiple health issues.
Instead of just applying, say, depression approaches with people or just applying approaches to help them deal with alcohol use or cannabis use, we're looking at integrating that all into a whole that offers them lots of treatment options.
The centre is looking for people from the Hunter to participate in the study. Not only will they receive a complete assessment with a psychologist, they'll also be better informed about the links between depression and drug use.
Give them a few skills to help them cope with their depressive symptoms, to cope with their cravings for alcohol or cravings to use.
Those wishing to take part can call 4924 6616. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
The 16-year-old was walking alone along a bushline shortcut to Swansea High School at 8:30 this morning when she was confronted by her attacker.
He threatened her with the putty knife and presented that to her ribcage. From the conversation that he had with the young lady, it's clear that the attack was sexually motivated. He attempted to force the 16-year-old girl into bushland.
Police say the man attempted to remove the young girl's clothes, but she bravely managed to fight him off and ran for several hundred metres to the safety of a nearby home, the offender fleeing in the opposite direction.
Students at Swansea High School were today warned about the isolated attack. The offender is described as aged in his early 30s, of medium build and average height, with short brown hair. He was wearing a blue cap with a brown peak, a blue singlet, shorts and suede work boots with no socks. Meantime, police have released an image of a man aged between 30 and 40, wanted over a rape at Maryland Drive Reserve on October 13th. He has 2 distinctive facial scars. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Precipitation is usually the culprit in turning blue skies to grey, but trillions of dust particles are to blame for today's phenomenon. Newcastle and the Hunter Valley didn't miss out, making tankers off the city look like ghost ships on the horizon. Combined with smoke from various bushfires burning around the region, the dust has caused another concern for health officials.
Since the weekend, we've treated around 20 or 30 people, transported about 8. These people have had eye irritations, breathing difficulties. Asthmatics find it particularly difficult with the haze and the smoke in the air. It causes them respiratory distress.
The ambulance service says in these dry, dusty conditions, it's important for the public to keep up their intake of non-alcoholic fluids, stay indoors when possible, and not overexert themselves.
And people with asthma, if they feel that they are becoming short of breath, recognise the signs early and call 000 and ask for assistance.
The bushfire threat, though extremely high today, didn't produce the emergencies of the last week. A blaze burning at Redhead, south of Newcastle, caused some concern, but was brought under control. Cullen Robinson, NBN News. The modernisation of the workplace hasn't reduced the need for tradespeople. Computers have made everyday tasks easier for some, but one still hasn't been invented to say, cut hair. That's why the 600 competitors from around Australia are at the National World Skills Competition in Newcastle. A win here goes a long way in establishing a bright future. The apprentices are representing 60 trades over the 3 days, from the intricate art of jewellery making to painting. Competition started today, and while pastry chefs moulded marzipan marsupials, judges kept an eagle eye on those in the kitchen, where out in the open, all tragedies and triumphs were on show. Judges in the flower arranging section have already noted the standard is impeccable. The winner guaranteed a trip to Switzerland next year, with 24 other gold medalists to take on the world's best. One new trade making its debut at the competition, power line working.
With all the gear we use and the way it is with safety, they obviously look after us with safety, and as long as you do it all by the book, you can't get hurt, and the fear of the heights, you just sort of got to get over it pretty quickly, because obviously most of our work's done up there.
It only has demonstration status this year, but it's hoped that will change.
This competition gives all trades good recognition and a bit of exposure. We've got plenty of people coming through watching today. And it's probably one of the trades that not a lot of people are that aware of.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News. For almost 5 generations, the Cockle Creek smelter has provided employment for families living in Lake Macquarie. It opened before the BHP Steelworks in 1897 and at its peak employed more than 1,000 workers. But its long history is about to come to a close.
The number one reason is that it's a marginal operation. It really hasn't made any money for the past 10 years.
The lead and zinc giant is expected to close between 2006 and 2008.
I'm being too old, too expensive to retrain for a short period of time. No, I don't expect to be employed once I leave here, no.
Yeah, my father-in-law worked here, my brother-in-law still works here, my mother-in-law worked here, the other brother-in-law worked here a bit.
The Australian Workers' Union says the effects of the closure will be felt by thousands.
They've steered the ship into a $3 billion black hole, and at the end of the day, it's the poor old worker that's got to wear the blunt of that.
While Lake Macquarie Council says the closure may ease the environmental impact in the area, it's concerned about the 360 families facing a bleak future.
We'd like to have a push on a way to have job creation to help ease that over the period of the closure.
Due to modern environmental constraints, the Australian Workers' Union says another operation like the Cockle Creek smelter would not be allowed to be built in Australia again. And some workers have already begun to count down the days when they'll walk through the gates for the last time. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
After a serious crime, the sooner an image of the suspect can be circulated, the more chance police have of making an arrest. Thanks to a $6,000 donation from the Newcastle Permanent Building Society, Newcastle Police no longer have to send their descriptions of offenders to Sydney for an image to be constructed. They now have their own ComFit unit, saving vital time.
Most importantly, getting that photo of that suspect out to the media, out to the public, out to the police, so we can effect an early arrest, and that's what it's all about.
Senior Constable Craig Bryan has just finished a 7-week training course and is Newcastle's first ComFit operator. He says the image is usually a good likeness.
A lot of it is depending on the witness details. If a witness is very good with what they supply you, the picture will turn out to be very good. If the witness has maybe had 2 seconds look at the person, well, obviously things are going to maybe a bit scratchy around the edges, but generally about 70-75% of it is very close.
Newcastle will also now help compile images for the rest of New South Wales. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Keep going up.
Panic swept through the seaside suburb of Redhead yesterday, with strong winds whipping up a bushfire in the nearby rubbish tip, pushing it towards homes. Around 200 firefighters converged on the area battling the ferocious flames. Even the American air crane, the Incredible Hulk, was called in to waterbomb the area. Under threat were dozens of houses and a nursing home. Some residents armed themselves with garden hoses in an effort to save their property. A southerly change around 10 o'clock last night made all the difference. Today's overcast weather helping firefighters to put out the blaze.
Well, the weather's helped us out a great deal. As you can see, it's raining here at the moment. The wind's turned around 180 degrees, so what fire we had back burned on, we're just mopping up at the moment.
Fire crews monitored the last few remaining hotspots this morning, and a bulldozer was brought in to help put out smouldering mulch. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News. A street parade isn't a street parade without the traditional pipe band, and the people of Curry were in for a real treat today. The parade was the highlight of centenary celebrations, marking the town's humble beginnings as a coal mining community. The Australian stock horse that featured in the Olympics opening ceremony was a crowd favourite, as was NBN's Big Dog. The Hunter Celtic pipe and drums were on song, as was the Cessnock RSL band. An antique fire truck reminded all of Australia's long history battling bushfires, while belly dancers gave an exotic touch to the festivities. And capping off the procession was pipe band number 4, the Miners' Pipe and Drums. All up, 52 floats took part in the parade, proceeds from the day's celebrations going towards the Westpac Rescue Helicopter, NBN Telethon and the Cessnock Rescue Squad. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
"60 intrepid scuba divers took to the water at Shoal Bay for the Hunter Dive Professionals Super Treasure Hunt, but rather than pieces of 8 on offer, it was golf balls, each bearing a number corresponding to a prize back on dry land. Among them a Westpac chopper flight, fitting really, seeing as the whole event aimed to raise well over $1,000 for the rescue helicopter service.
Westpac's great for us because we may never need them, but it's good to know that they're there if we do need them. So they're a good sort of charity to back.
Organised by 3 local dive shops, it'll now be an annual event. Meanwhile, second time around for the Windale Festival proved to be just as successful as the first, with an estimated 10,000 people again paying a visit to Tula Tabar Reserve for a day of fun. An opportunity for the local community to celebrate and showcase its wealth of talent, the festival featured rides, stalls, displays and various performances, compared by Ian Terps Turpie. And there was also the inaugural Windale 500, a sprint race for ages 4 to 44. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Yeah, the Corolla was travelling south. As we understand at this stage, he may have been travelling into the sun, and that may have contributed to the accident.
Wildlife illustration continues to play an important role, as it did when botanical drawings described the unusual and strange creatures of lands far away. Leaving behind the need for a camera, 6 students from Newcastle University's Wildlife Illustration Honours program displayed their work and vied for the Margaret Senior Award. The $1,000 prize, named after a renowned wildlife artist, was this year won by Scone farmer Robbie Van Hemert, who actually studied not art but languages at university.
It's not having that art background, I had a lot of trouble, and quite a few of the things I've done a second and third time. So I was just thrilled to bits that I could get the 10 works together by the due date, the best I could.
The Newcastle University course is unique to Australia and one of only a few in the world. Brazilian biologist Cristina Garces heard about it on the internet and is now looking forward to illustrating the diverse flora and fauna of her homeland.
I'll be back home and I will illustrate the plants and the animals at home, which I feel more comfortable. I know by the name.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
Fear was struck into the hearts of dozens of homeowners at Redhead on Friday when this deliberately lit fire threatened to engulf houses. If not for the Ericsson Sky Crane, homes would have been lost.
There didn't seem to be any conditions that led to a natural fire breakout, and the fact that there appeared to be several ignition areas throughout the Redhead area, it does make us believe that there were some arsonists at work.
Today, fire crews were still at Redhead in the old tip site, where several small outbreaks continue to smoulder. These patches have been difficult to extinguish, burning in a deep layer of mulch.
And we're going to excavate those areas out and try and douse those smaller fires with water to ensure that we've got them out all over the waste site.
I think the people right throughout the Lake Macquarie and Newcastle area have got to be on the highest state of alert. The fire season's only just started and we've had some very serious fires and we've had property threatened. It's going to be a very long, hot summer for the fire brigade.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It was round 2, but for many this was the first hit out of the $40,000 competition. For Charlestown, it was also their last. Taking on Mountains Carrying On at Gosford, Charlestown finished with 9 for 195. Paul Ross the best with the bat, scoring 61, while Steve Threadgold was unbeaten on 34. In reply, Ben Riley's 52 helped the home side pass the target with 3 wickets to spare and progress onto the next round. Merriweather joined the winners list after a comfortable win against Gosford was set up by spinners Mitch Irwin and Liam Wharton, who helped rout the home side for just 83. In all, 8 Hunter Bay sides made it through to the third round of the Cup draw, with Southern Lakes, Charlestown and Singleton all eliminated. 4 Hunter-based women's cricketers have won selection in the state under-19s team to contest the national championships, including spinner Laura Clulo, seen here playing for Wallsend. She'll be joined by Nicole Goodwin, Julianne Campbell and captain Leah Poulton, who also earned a call up to the New South Wales Institute of Sports side to play South Australia next month.
When it comes to Australian rock and roll, John Farnham is the king. Currently touring the country on his last time tour, John and crew have added an extra show in Newcastle on November 11. But our most successful domestic recording artist is also as well known for having a big heart, and he's set to open it for Hunter Youth.
We've decided that we're going to donate some of the proceeds back from that concert to NBN and the telethon. And also we're going to shake the cans and rattle the buckets so we can try and collect as much money as we can and ask everybody to dig deep.
Glenn Wheatley says there wasn't any hesitation in playing the extra date, especially when that show will be giving back to the region long after the last time.
we've all got children, for goodness sake, and they represent the future. And if we can't put something back to our kids and help make life a bit easier and better for them, then I don't know what else we can be doing in life.
Tickets for the extra show and final chance to see John Farnham in Newcastle go on sale tomorrow. Colin Robinson, NBN News.